What's up, guys? It's your boy Abdullah here from Ather Gaming, and today we're bringing you something super spicy, super cool, and I think it's actually one of the best kept secrets about the format, and that is Spyral Orcust, guys. Now, before we get into the profile, I want to give a huge shout out to our patrons, our subscribers, everybody leaving comments down below, guys. Remember, we have a huge giveaway at 5K subs. We're giving away a Prismatic Storm Dragon's Return, which is honestly the best prismatic and the most beautiful card I've ever looked at in my entire life. Anyways, guys, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but we're going to get right into the deck profile. Alright, so getting right into it, guys. We play the triple Spyral Super Agent. Super Agent is insane. For those who don't know what it does, you call the top card of your opponent's deck. If you call it right, it special summons itself. And then when it's summoned by the effect of a Spiral card, including itself, you target a spell trap on your opponent's side of the field and you pop it. So this card's really good against like the control matchups, and it's really good against decks like Subterror, decks like Altergeist, Striker, literally everything. The card's just really good just because it forces a lot of pressure on your opponent. The reason why we play 3, and I know that you can play this deck with just 2, but the reason why we play 3 is just because if you open double Super Agent and you get the call right, you just go into Helix for basically free at that point, because you can just special one, normally the other one, and just make the Helix. So it's the only Spiral monster that can summon itself, which is why I decided to max out on it. And like, you really want to see your Spiral cards in this deck, so just being able to see the triple Super Agent is really good. Card's fantastic going first and fantastic going second. So in my opinion, it's an ought to include at 3. We play the 1 Spiral Tough. Now the reason that we use for Super Agent can be applied to Spyral Tough here. Tough isn't that great going first. Going first, he's just a normal summon Spiral name, which is fine. Like, it's okay if we open it with the Super Agent or another extender. But going second, he's fantastic. So I still wanted to include him in the deck, and I didn't want to move him to the side or anything like that. Just because going second, having access to like Spiral Sword and searching out your Tough usually helps you win a lot of games. And if you go second and you open like Super Agent and Tough, you get to remove 2 cards before you get to your Spiral combo. And it's because of this guy that and because of this guy as well, that gives us an advantage over a lot of the control and more backer-oriented decks that we're seeing nowadays. So yeah, just the 1 Tough. He counts as Super Agent when he's on the field, so he's live with a Quick Fix. His effect is that you can target a card your opponent controls, call a top card of their deck. If you call it right, spell trap monster, you destroy that card. So it applies a lot of pressure because like your opponent, if you're calling it blind, your opponent doesn't know that you know kind of thing, or like there's no guarantee that you're going to destroy their card. So if they have like a negate, example, like they have a Makaba and your normal Tough target Makaba, it puts a lot of pressure on them to like negate the Tough, and then you just get value out of your Tough. And if they don't negate it and you call it right, the game snowballs pretty hard. So just the 1 Tough. You could bump this up or play more in the side deck, but just in the main deck, I wanted to keep it as close to 40 as possible, and so we just played the 1 Tough. I still wanted the name. Play the 1 Master Plan. Holy, this card is insane. For as much as hype as Helix gets, like this card deserves most of it, because this is what you're bringing out. This card is a +1 usually. Just by summoning it out, you get to search a Spiral spell or trap. And more importantly, when it's sent to the graveyard, you can search your deck for a Spiral monster and Spiral Resort, which is insane. Like, normally drawing Resort is a brick, but we have a combo to shuffle back the Resort, summon back the Master Plan. The card's add effect is not like hard once per turn, so you can like add it, send it to the graveyard, revive it, add again, and the card is insane in our deck. Like, this is one of the reasons to play the deck. This is one of the most powerful and impactful cards in the game currently, and the amount of advantage that she generates on her own just lets you play so much more in the deck. So that's 1 Master Plan, and this also, resolving Master Plan is how you play around like your Helix getting Ash, because if you have another way to get to Master Plan, like their Ash is basically irrelevant because you just want like +7. So then in the same vein, we play the limited card, Quick Fix. Card's broken at 3, even at 1, it's still very, very obnoxious just because you can revive it. There's some cool plays you can do with Quick Fix, like you can if you have an agent on board or a Super Agent, you can discard the Spiral Trap card, chain the Trap card to revive Quick Fix so it doesn't get banished, and still get your search. This card's insane. It combos very well with like Hornet Drones off, or the Spiral Gear Drone off the 1-for-1, and more importantly, the reason why Quick Fix is really good is Quick Fix lets us toolbox our deck for Spiral Gear cards, so we can like send Master Plan to the graveyard, revive Master Plan with the big red, and it's really good follow-up. And in our deck, there's a lot of synergy because we are playing the Orcust package. Quick Fix is a machine, so even though he does get banished, we can just shuffle him back with Galatea or with Longirsu and then add him back with Resort later on. So like, the card is just obnoxious. That's why it's at 1. In the same vein, we play the 1 Spiral Gear Drone. This lets us, when it's normal summoned, we get to stack the top 3 cards of our opponent's deck, so we can call like our Super Agent correct, we can call our Tough correct, we can call our Double Helix correct, and he also has another effect. You can tribute him and target a Spiral monster you control, and that monster gains 500 attack for each card on your side of the field, so you can like pump some cards pretty big with it. Like, 500 is not a small amount. Like, if you have this with like Sleeper and like Resort and Last Resort out, which is super normal, right? Your Sleeper is gaining 1500 attack. Use like Last Resort's effect to let Sleeper attack directly, that's like 41 direct to your face. It's more than 41, it's 43. That's a lot. So we play the 1 drone. If we could play more, we'd play more, obviously. It has the 3rd effect remember, 3 effects, card probably is broken. So its third effect is you can banish it another Spyral card, add a super agent from your graveyard to your hand, so it just helps with recursion. One of the benefits of playing Spirals as a combo deck, especially now, is just that you do generate a lot of advantage, and usually when you end on your combo, you have like 4 or 5 cards plus like a resort in hand as well, or a resort on field and 4 cards in hand. So you usually have a play for turn 2, and this can just like recycle your Helix, this can recycle your super agent. Like the card's really, really strong, recycling tough. Like the card's insane. So we play the 1 drone just because we can only play 1. We play the 1 last resort. This is a card you can bump up to 2 if you want. I just think you only need the 1. Because it's a machine, you can also just banish it off to summon your sleeper and then recycle it back with your Orcust Link monsters. Last Resort's effect is that you can on the field or in the hand, you can target 1 Spyral monster you control and you equip Last Resort to it. And then anything that's equipped with Last Resort can't be targeted by card effects or destroyed by card effects or destroyed by battle. Basically, he's the perfect helmet. He makes everything immune to everything. More importantly, another effect that you can use with Last Resort is that you can send a card on your side of the field and your monster can attack directly this turn, the monster that it's equipped to. So you can send, like, if you drew a Spyral Trap or a Spyral Spell that you can't get in the graveyard, you can use this to really dump them to the graveyard. Also, you can also just punch your opponent directly, and sometimes they can set up a board of like a million negates, and your Last Resort sticks, and you just attack directly and you just win the game anyway. So to go with Spyral Last Resort, we play Spyral Sleeper. This is actually the reason to play the Spyral version of Orcust and to play Spirals as a deck anyways. Sleeper's effect is, to summon him, first of all, you have to banish 3 Spyral cards from your graveyard. It doesn't have to be monsters, it can be spells, traps, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. And his effect is, it's a quick effect. During either player's turn, target 1 Spyral card you control and 2 cards your opponent controls, destroy them. Now, Sleeper doesn't have to destroy the Spyral card you control. So when you equip him with Last Resort, he's immune to destruction. So Sleeper targets himself and 2 cards your opponent controls and just destroys them. This card is mega Dryden, except he can pop face down cards as well. Like, oh my, this is how we beat the control matchup. And when you have him with Last Resort, like, it's very difficult to out this board with the Spyral Resort. And usually every single combo that we're ending on is making Sleeper at least. So the reason why I believe that this deck can compete with some of the better decks in the format and is a contender with the Lunalight Orcust deck for the best combo deck in format is just because you get to end on Sleeper. And a lot of decks just can't deal with Sleeper efficiently, and Sleeper just wins the game against those decks. Like, if you do this against Striker, like, they can't anchor it if you have this equipped, or if you have Last Resort, or if you have the Spyral Resort. You're popping 2 cards every single turn. I don't care how many cards you're drawing off Engage. I'm popping 2. This card's nuts. Like, this is the reason to play, because even when you break, you can just go into standard Orcust combo, get a Crescendo Negate, Galtate, and Gears, and just summon Sleeper, like before. He's a light, so you have to remember to summon him before you go into your Orcust monsters, but there's not too much of an issue. That's all that we play for Spyral cards, guys. I think this is like the best ratio to play. This could be cut, or you could cut the tough as well. But I think that I want to see every single one of these cards, and sometimes you really do. The only time you really lose, or like lose out on your combos, when you don't open 2 Spyral cards, or you don't have a way to get to 2 Spyral cards consistently, and this just lets us allow that to happen. We can recycle a lot of these cards as well, so it's really broken. Moving on to the other monsters that we play Dangers. Now, God bless reprints, because Dangers got a lot cheaper for the lower rarity version of them. So we play 8 Dangers here. Whoa, Mothman jumped out. So we play 8 Dangers here. Nessie, of course, Tsuchinoko, and Jackalope. Like, there's not much to be said about these cards. In our deck, they just act as just extenders, and that's it. They can double up by discarding cards from our hand that we want in the graveyard, like Quick Fix, like the Spyral Trap card, the Spyral Spell card, just cards that we want in the graveyard to generate advantage from there. And Mothman is just there as another consistency piece, because in many instances with Mothman, the draw and the discard is actually pretty favorable for you, because you can discard your Master Plan, revive your Master Plan, you can discard the Trap card, revive another card. Like, so Mothman is one of the better Dangers that we can play. You can fit a Bigfoot in here if you want, but I really just wanted to have Dangers that are almost always live, that will always draw cards, or will always put like a body on board, or will, load up our graveyard for future play. So the Dangers are insane. And so one of the best things about this deck, right, one of the craziest things is, and I touched on it earlier, it's about the amount of advantage that you generate while you're doing your combo that's like in your hand. So yes, you're building a board, but you're also building hand advantage, as well as like graveyard advantage. So what you do here, like the Dangers usually suck past turn 1, right? That's what happens. They're a huge consistency boost for turn 1, but past turn 1, if you've depleted a lot of resources and you top deck a Danger, it just feels horrible. But in this deck, we have so many cards in hand that our Dangers are always live, and we have so many cards that just want to be in the graveyard that the Danger's just fantastic. This is how we play through a lot of boards going second, and like a Danger combined with like a Tough and an Agent just means you can go through whatever your opponent puts up, like Boral Sort them. And going first, it helps us make Appaloosa, which is one of the reasons to play the deck as well. One of the ways that we play around Nibiru. We play the Honorary Danger, we play Dark Greffer, and I've been going back and forth between Greffer and Armageddon Knight. The reason, if you've seen some of our older videos, you know how much we love this interaction. Like, Greffer Nessie is just ridiculous, just in how much advantage it generates. And Master Plan's also, it's level 5 or higher Dark, right? So you can pitch Master Plan to summon the Greffer. Also, you can do Greffer pitch like Mothman Mothman effect, like pitch a trap and like to foolish the master plan, like then banish the trap, summon the master plan. You can do some crazy stuff with Dark Refer that you can't do with Armageddonite, which is why I chose to include it. And most often we are special summoning this guy for free because we play the 2 Nessie, we play the master plan, and then we play the next cards, which are the Orcust engine. Now we play a very light Orcust engine, as small as I was comfortable with like getting away with. Play the Double Nightmare because this is the only Orcust monster that you actually need in your deck to be able to combo. You need to be summoning the Nightmare, I should say, off of the Mermaid just to be able to go into your Galatea line and to be able to go into your Orcust engine and get that train rolling. So we always wanted to have one Nightmare to be able to summon off the Harp Horror or the Nightmare Mermaid. Now, in the same vein, we played the other Orcust. Of course, you just need this for the combo. The one Harp Horror because you're gonna be dumping off the Orcust Nightmare and this shuffle, and then like consistently summoning a monster from your deck is super insane. And Symbol Skeleton, just because you need this guy, you only need one symbol. Honestly, you only need one Harp Horror in this style of deck anyway. Symbol being able to revive Dingirsu is just how we deal with a lot of problem threats, and being able to just recur advantage means that even when our board gets broken, we just go right back at our opponent. So if we get like Nibiru or we get like Dark Ruler and like Sphere Modas, like next turn, they better kill us because we're just going to go do it all over again. And it's cards like Symbol Skeleton, let's do that. Again, a very light Orcust engine just because we want to Orcust combo at the end of our Spiral combo, at the end of the rest of our combo. But also, if we do get Nibiru mid-combo and we didn't get a chance to make an Appaloosa beforehand, we can just go into the Orcust combo, end on a negate, end on a sleeper, and like Crescendo plus sleeper with Dingirsu protection, like it's really hard to lose those games. So yeah, this 4 Orcust cards. That's it for the monster count, guys. No hand traps, just because first of all, I think the dangers really help you go second, so I don't think you need the hand traps in this style of deck. And we really just want to be drawing combo pieces and nothing like hand traps to like bog us down. Yeah, so that's it for the monsters. Now next we'll go into the spell cards. We'll start with the Spiral spells. This is Spiral Mission Assault. Now, its effect is that when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and special summon a Spiral monster from your hand. So if we can get like this card engraved, we can like banish it, special summon Master Plan from hand, special summon Quick Fix from hand. And it has a secondary effect of like when it's on the field, if your Spiral monster destroys a card on the field, like destroys one of your opponent's cards, you get a draw card. That's hard about to return, but it's fantastic because sometimes you just draw this, you don't need it in the combo, you just activate it and Sleeper will pop a card to get a draw. It destroys itself in the third end phase, so you can get like 2 turns of value if they're not dead. But it's just another like one of those like necessary evils you want to play, but it's like a very good card and just on its own. The next Spiral card we play is the Spiral Big Red. We just play the 1 Big Red because I chose to go for a more generic option for the other revival cards that we're playing. Big Red's insane, so Big Red's effect is that you target a Spiral monster in your graveyard, you revive it, and then it can't be destroyed by battle. Now, an interesting note is that if they pop Big Red after the monster's already summoned, Big Red like just gets destroyed and it doesn't destroy the monster. So it's not like Premature Burial or like Overdone Burial, any card like that. The card is really good. This is a very powerful extender, and this is one of the ways we're reviving Master Plan. Quick Fix can search this for us, which is just ridiculous. And then after it's done its job on the field, it's an extender, we can just banish it for the Spiral Sleeper to be able to continue our play. And then we play the best field spell in the game, in my opinion, that's Spiral Resort. This is a field spell that has 3 effects. So, it's a manual activation, and its effect is that once per turn, you can add a Spiral card from your deck to your hand, or a Spiral monster from your deck to your hand. So you can search Sleeper, Master. There's no restriction on level, it just searches a card. Its secondary effect is Spiral cards that you control outside of Resort cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. This thing gives your entire Spiral board immunity and protection from targeting. Its third effect, and before, we used to talk about this like it was a downside, is that you have to shuffle on the end phase, you have to shuffle a main deck monster back into your deck. You can't shuffle extra deck. It has to be a main deck monster. But that's insane for us recurring resources because we can just shuffle back like a Nightmare if we have 2 Nightmares in grave. We can shuffle back like Harp Horror if we want Harp Horror in the deck to be able to dump it later to be able to continue our plays. Like we can just shuffle back so many resources with this card that it's just insane how good this card is. And this combos with the Orcust links. Like if Quick Fix got banished, we can just like Orcust link, shuffle back the Quick Fix, Resort, add it back, normal to Quick Fix, and just go off. Card's insane. That's why it's at 1. Now, we'll go into the more generic spells later, and to start off, of course, we'll play the triple Call by the Grave. Now, most Spiral decks are just live and die by double Helix. We are not that kind of deck. Usually we're resolving Helix after we make an Appaloosa, we resolve Helix after we've started Ujud or something. Like, we don't rely on resolving Helix. That said, when Helix resolves, you're probably going to win that game very, very easily. And this just protects our Master Plan searches as well, and it's just a generically powerful card. It acts as like a trap card going first, essentially, if like they didn't hand trap us. And the card is just insane. You don't necessarily need to play Call by the Grave, but remember, my theory on Call by the Grave has always been that decks that can do a combo that is so oppressive that your opponent probably won't be able to play through it, that's the kind of deck you want to play Call by the Grave in. And we generate so much advantage that we'll trade that 1 for 1, especially when we go first. This card is ridiculous. And you know what? If Helix resolves, we probably win. and that's just another way for us to get Helix to resolve. Then we play the one Reinforcement the Army. No surprise here. Tough is a warrior, Super Agent's a warrior, Greffer is a warrior, and this card is just nuts for that. Like, it's another toolbox card. It comes out in the side against Thunder Dragon. Oh, okay, that's the point about this deck, right? One of the biggest issues with Spyral is that it's a fantastic deck, but they have no way to deal with Thunder. The Orcust package alleviates all those concerns. Just because Orcust is so powerful against Thunder, because you're not searching, you're just setting from deck or just milling from deck. And like you can go into like Longirsu, shuffle one back, Dingirsu, send the other one, and there's just so much you can do. And the Orcust engine just really lets you play against Thunder, which is like your worst matchup. So once we remove our worst matchup, like it just means everything should be easy, right? Anyways, Rhoda's super powerful. This is one of the best toolbox cards in the game, and we're searching some of the most powerful warriors in the game, and like Dark Greffer, and like the Agent plus Tough combined going to Helix. We play 1-for-1. This is one of the most insane extenders in the game. Just 1-for-1 plus a monster in hand, like 1-for-1 pitch, summon, quick fix, search drone, normal drone, go into Helix, stack their deck, search a card. Like, this is insane. Of course, we're going to play it. Now, this is a deck that can play a lot of powerful 1-ups, as you're going to notice. So we play the 1-for-1 just because it's at 1. Reborn, like the best graveyard reviver extender ever in the history of the game. And like this card's nuts because, of course, we can send Master Plan in the graveyard, search 2 cards, special summon back Master Plan, search another card, and continue to extend with that. It also just lets us put bodies on board to make Appaloosa a lot easier before we get into Birud. And just this card is just nuts. Even going second is pretty useful. And because like we're playing an Orcust package, you can like reborn their Dingirsu or like reborn their Galatea and then overlay into your Dingirsu. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. Reborn is insane. I don't need to explain too much about it. When we get hand trapped, Reborn is how we play through it. Again, another powerful one of Foolish Burial. Like this deck is just loaded with like limited cards that are just insane. Foolish Burial is insane just because it gives us access to most of the cards that we want in a graveyard. Sometimes you want, your drone in graveyard, you want your quick fix in graveyard, you want your Master Plan in graveyard, and this just gives us access to all that. Now you can do some cool stuff too, where like you can send a Tough Revival with Monster Born, pop a card before you resolve your Helix. Like this card is just the utility in this card is insane, and again, it almost acts like an Upstart in the sense that it's like one less card, because this just gets us to whatever card that we wanted to have drawn with Upstart regardless, and like it just combos with all the revival cards we're playing anyway. Speaking of which, we played the one World Day Succession. Now this was the second Big Red before, but I really didn't like that. Big Red's are harder once per turn, and this is a card that, Big Red's searchable anyway, you can't search this, so if you draw this card again, it's like Monster Reborn, it's like playing 2 copies of Reborn, but it's a little bit more, it's more generic than Big Red because you can revive any monster to summon to any link pointer. The card is really, really insane, and you know what? When we get interrupted, this is how we bring it back. We send Master Plan to the graveyard. Go into a Unicorn, shuffle back something, shuffle back our own resort, revive back, go into Orcust combo. Search the Master Plan, summon. Card's insane. Every time we get hand trap, remember if you have an extender in this deck, especially for every hand trap your opponent hits you with, you have one extender. You can play through it most likely. And this card's just really powerful in our deck, just because we're reviving cards that usually will end the game this turn or next turn. Same thing. We play Card Destruction. This card's nuts. Spyral struggle with consistency, right? And like we have Orcust cards, we have some of our Spyral cards love the graveyard. All our Orcust cards love the graveyard. Dangers all trigger off this. This card just wins the game by itself. Like if you resolve Card Destruction, you probably are going to win that game if you have more effects that trigger than your opponent. And that's what this card does. This card is just activate, win game. It's a hugely impactful card. It's a power card, and our deck is filled with powerful cards, and Card Destruction is just another one of those. Also, it just filters our deck as well, right? So it's like when we open Card Destruction, it's like opening Upstart Goblin with a bunch of them and loading our graveyard. The card's ridiculous. And then we play the one Terraforming just to get to the Spyral Resort, because as much as you don't want to draw a Resort, sometimes you really do want to against certain matchups like Sky Striker. You really want to have Resort on board, and you can always like Terraforming for Resort. It's a starter, get into your Spyral cards and just really start comboing from there. Now, just look at these powerful 1-ups that we're playing. This is a 3-up, but whatever. We're only playing one. Foolish Burial, Monster Reborn, 1-for-1, Card Destruction, Terraforming, Reinforcement of the Army. Like, these cards are all limited, and for good reason. And this deck takes full advantage of every single one of these cards. Now, that's it for the spell cards. Mainly, they're all just extenders. All just extenders, or cards that help us push through our play. So this deck is literally extender the deck. And you can always play through stuff. Like I've been to Birud and still been able to go off. We play the triple Spiral Mission Rescue. Now, Rescue's effect is that when it's in the graveyard, you can banish a target a Spiral monster and you reborn it in your grave. Ridiculous. Not once per turn, by the way. That's why we play 3. Master Plan can search this. We have a million different discard outlets to get this in the graveyard. It has another effect where if it's on the field, you can target a Spyral card in your graveyard, add it to your hand, a Spyral monster. So you can recycle your quick fixes, you can recycle a Sleeper if they somehow got rid of that card, recycle Super Agent, recycle Tough. Like the card is just insane, and like it's a great bluff, right? Because like if they MST this, they're going to be very, very sad. And the final trap we play is the one of Orcust Crescendo. We're not playing Babel because that card sucks, or it's not as good as Spyral Resort for sure, and we really want to be ending always with Spyral Resort. And Crescendo's great. It's a free negate for us, and like honestly, the Orcust package, what it does is it replaces Trigate Wizard in a lot of ways, where you did all that work and you went through half your, or like you went through 80% of your extra deck just to be able to get into a negate, and Orcust Crescendo just does that for free. We get to Galatea, we get to set the Crescendo, and then we can always recycle our resources when it's in the graveyard. So this card always is usually a +1 for us, and in a deck that already pluses as hard as Spirals do, this is just an insane card. So it's 40 cards in the main, guys. We want to be as consistent as possible, always being able to combo and really just going off onto our opponent's face. Like, I'll show you guys some combos later, maybe. We play the 1 double Helix. You can, for the extra deck, you can play multiple Helixes. You can play 2 if you want, but there's so much recursion. There's so much just cards that just revive cards from the graveyard that I felt like I only needed the 1 Helix. When you play the 1, you just have to be more aware of like banishing it off the sleeper because you can't recycle it. And so Helix is insane. So it's Helix's effect, for those who don't know, is that you call the top card of your opponent's deck. If you call it right, you can special summon a Spiral monster from your graveyard or your deck to a pointer that Helix points to, or add one from your graveyard or your deck to your hand. This card is insane. There's a reason why we compare a lot of cards to double Helix. So there's a reason why these are called double Helix markers to find a format. And this card is still just as ridiculous as it's ever been. It requires 2 Spiral monsters. It's super easy to get into. And, if this card resolves, we're probably going to win that game pretty easily. Moving on, we play the 1 Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh lets us do some plays with Quick Fix, and sometimes it is that one other extender that we needed, because you can go like Quick Fix, search Big Red, make Linkuriboh, Big Red revive, Linkuriboh, and then go into Orcust combo. So it's just there for its utility. It's a very powerful card. You can also use it to link away the drones and stuff, and it's just the utility. And we have a lot of space in this extra deck, so we can fit Linkuriboh in for sure. We play the Nightmare package, the 1 Nightmare Mermaid, the Nightmare Cerberus, the Nightmare Phoenix. Let me make these look nice and pretty. The Nightmare Unicorn, and of course, the Nightmare Griffin. So, Mermaid needs no introduction, guys. 2 cards become full Orcust combo because of Mermaid, and usually we're drawing off our Mermaid because a Mermaid will be co-linked to something when we pitch a card. So we pitch a trap card, draw a card, revive a card. Like, Mermaid just lets everything get started. It's like, Mermaid is very powerful, and it's very similar to Helix in what it can do, so why don't we just play both in our deck? To go with Mermaid, we play the Cerberus and the Phoenix. Now, you can play multiples of either of these. I want to play some other cards, so I decided to cut down to just 1 Phoenix and or 1 Cerberus. Phoenix is great for its removal ability, and as well as battle protection. Cerberus for card effects. But really, we're just using these to ladder into our Mermaid and to just remove cards going second. A Unicorn is just a great utility card, but in our deck, it has added benefit of being able to shuffle back our Spiral Resort. So this card is insane in our deck, because if we draw Spiral Resort and we have like the Spiral combo, we just shuffle back the Spiral Resort, revive the Master Plan, link again, and then Master Plan will just search out the Resort for us. So even if we draw a Resort, it's not a brick, just play starter at that point. And this card is just insane for that. And again, also, we'll be drawing a lot with this card just because of how easy it is for us to link summon and set up pointers. We play the Nightmare Griffin. Nightmare Griffin's also just a very powerful card, because if some instances you can go into your Unicorn, start doing some link plays, and then Griffin, and just summon the Mermaid over here, so we get a draw off the Griffin. Usually we're not setting anything in our main deck with the Griffin, but you know what, if we pitched a Crescendo because of a danger or something like that, we can always just set it again if we drew it. Set Call by the Grave, things like that. We can even set cards like Monster Reborn for next turn if we need to. So Griffin's super useful for that. Also, with some of the Link 3s that we play, namely Curious, Griffin just becomes a utility powerhouse for us. Curious, this card is insane. This is Laval Vault Chain, and we get to mill 3 cards. So in instances, most people, like the Orcust Lunalight deck, for example, is sending a Floodgate, or they're sending Eradicator and then setting it with the Griffin. That's not why Curious is in this deck, although you can do that. You can side those cards or even main them. The reason why he's here is just because it's so easy to make this guy, and just being able to dump Master Plan or dump the trap card to revive your Master Plan, it's just so useful. And there's so many instances where I've gone Curious Effect, dump Master Plan, and mill the trap card, and it's been okay, well, this game's over. Just being able to link 3 is why we play Griffin, and this card is just insane. It's search our deck for anything we want, and when it dies, it adds a card from our graveyard to our hand. So now we'll go into the Orcust package. It's a very small Orcust package, but I guess it's a little bit larger than what other people are playing. Play the double Galatea. Shout out to Ryan for the ulties. Galatea is just insane in our deck just because it can shuffle back Quick Fix and a drone. And it doesn't need too much of an introduction now. This is what we grind with. This is how we set the counter trap. Play the 1 Longirsu. Again, Longirsu can also shuffle back those machines, so we can usually resolve Longirsu's effect. He's really just here just so we can have the second Galatea in the extra deck. Just so when the turn swings back to us, it's easier for us to link climb. Longirsu is also super useful against the Thunder Dragon matchup, which, again, Spirals have struggled with in the past, and he just lets us do that. And then, of course, we play Dingirsu. Dingirsu is ridiculous. Again, just like the rest of the Orcust monsters, you can attach like Quick Fix from the Bandit Zone to Dingirsu. Setting up Dingirsu lets us play cards like Appaloosa just because we can protect a low attack Appaloosa. And, usually you end with like Galatea, Dingirsu, Counter Trap, Sleeper, Appaloosa for 3 or 4. Nobody's playing through that. And again, this is one of the reasons why we're not playing a card like Borolo Dragon or, Ningirsu, things like that you might see in Spirals, just because Dingirsu just answers all of that stuff. And he can just answer it like every single turn just because we can revive this. Whereas, if we Boroload and they add our Boroload somehow, like we can't get back that Boroload. Short of Monster Reborn, whereas like Orcust has a built-in Monster Reborn. So these cards are insane. I wouldn't cut any of them just because every single one of these cards has come up for me in my testing. And this is really how we shore up our matchups against our poor matchups. And after we get hand trap, for example, we can just go into Orcust combo. Orcust is broken. They should get banned. The next cards we play are the Link 4s. First off, we'll start with the consistency. Saryuja. It's very easy to get 4 monsters with different names on the board in this deck, and just being able to, sometimes you don't want to make the Appaloosa first because you can't, or you're going to go Appaloosa pass, which nobody wants to do. So Saryuja really lets us ladder into that, and Saryuja drawing a master plan is super powerful because we can Saryuja, draw the master plan, special the master plan, link it to a nightmare, go into Orcust combo, search the resort, search the sleeper, and go into Spiral combo as well. The card is just, it's a starter and it's necessary. It's very similar to Curious in that sense that you won't need them every single game, but when you need them, you'll be glad you played them. And because you have the extra deck space to play them, why not? Saryuja's broken. I don't need to explain Saryuja. The next Link 4 we play is the Boral Sword Dragon. Spirals OTK so easily, Orcust OTK so easily because of this card, and it's so easy for us to get 4 monsters on board, or 4 monsters to be able to fulfill Boral Sword's requirement. It's if Helix resolves, you're going to get Boral Sword, you're going to die. This card is insane. This card ends a lot of games that might not be winnable, and the greatest thing is in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Boral Sword's application is that yes, he gets to win you games and close out games you probably already would have won, but he gets to save you a lot of time because sometimes those games that you were going to win might have taken 10-15 minutes, and if you're playing against Striker, they sit there and they just kind of you in time, and that doesn't feel fun. So Boral Sword makes sure that you get to game 3 or game 2 with a lot of time left, and it can also close out games super quickly. The card can't be destroyed by battle, which is relevant as well. And then, of course, the last Link 4 is Appaloosa. This is actually one of the reasons why I came back to the deck. I played Spirals for a very long time. It's because of Appaloosa. With this deck, with the Orcust monsters, with the Danger monsters, specifically the Danger monsters, of course, it's so easy to go into Appaloosa and just have a bunch of negates to make sure our Helix resolves, our Mermaid resolves. If we have Spiral Resort plus Appaloosa, you cannot interact with my double Helix. It's going to resolve and you're going to have a bad day. Usually we make this in the main monster zone and we make the Mermaid on top of the Appaloosa like this, and it's just insane, guys. This card is nuts. Usually we make it with 4, and even if we make it with less than 4, because we play Dingirsu, we can end with a Dingirsu to protect our Appaloosa, and in many instances, I'm going into Appaloosa more than I'm going to Nightmare Griffin, just because Appaloosa can hit cards out of my opponent's hand, like hand effects, for example. It can stop Thunder Dragon, like Hawk, Roar, things like that. It can stop card effects or monster effects that aren't on the field. Alright, guys, that's all that we play for the extra deck, guys. I can show you guys some side deck cards, but I don't think it's too relevant. Remember, again, it just comes down to your local metagame, guys, what people are playing there. There are some cards that Spiral can take advantage of in the side, and I'll show you guys another video for that. Anyways, guys, I'm glad you guys checked out the video. Thank you so much for supporting us, and I hope that you really do take a serious look at this deck, because I do think this is the best kept secret in our format. Sleeper is a pain to deal with, and I think people have forgotten about Spiral Sleeper, and it's time to put some respect on his name. Thank you guys for checking out the video. It's Blue from Ather Gaming, signing out.